I appreciate that. And I agree with him. I think we're coming to a great place where more and more we are finding out the truth about what's going on, across many different political beliefs, philosophical beliefs. Everyone thinks we're entering an age of enlightenment. I really do believe that we're coming into this. I mean, we just saw, and we can enjoy the victory for a couple seconds, but in Pennsylvania, they just announced that this lockdown is unconstitutional. I think that is the beginning, okay, of the pushback. I get in a weird way where sometimes I just like, you know what? If some people want to take it, let them have it. Let them alter their DNA for the rest of their generations of their family's life. That's on them. But the rest of us have to push back. And the rest of us, I really think we have to start bringing people into the mix, finding common ground. Stop looking at the what's different about all of us, but find what brings us together. Find us in recovery. They say find the similarities, not the differences. And I think we're really focusing on the differences right now, not in this show, but like in general, in across the world. Like you're in that group, I'm in this group. We can't get along. But yeah, man, we both love our families. We both want to make an honest dollar, and we both want to just like live in peace, smile, laugh, get laid once in a while, get drunk, have a good time. All the stuff that is like great about life. We need to focus on that. I'm personally going to work on doing mushrooms with black people more. I think that's a big thing. I'm going to try to do shrooms more with the black community because I don't hear enough rappers talking about that. And I think that will really help. But, there's like the gay community, feminism, the black community. I just think they're getting manipulated at such a high level by people that they trust that and that they just see people like us, just like, okay, we're alt-right or whatever. They see us as like, the enemy. And I'm just like, I love everybody. I love the melting pot. They've diversified our diversity. I mean, they've weaponized our diversity. And I think we really need to start to find common ground and express people where we're coming from and not just get mad. It's like the thing that happened with the two cops, like nobody likes that, man. But I think we also have to be really open-minded that like, the blunt force trauma that cops do to some people is can have a bad cause a bad reaction from the community. So I think we need to start finding common ground instead of like looking at differences and celebrating other people getting hurt. That's kind of my opinion.
Here. I would agree because we're being used as pawns in a game of divide and conquer. And if it is all political theater, we should. I try not to have hate for Kamala or Sleepy Joe that's the real virus: hate and fear. I think.
Well, we got another East Coaster on the call. We're dominating these calls. We got Sam. I mean, now he's Hollywood, but he's from New York. Let's be honest, he's the East Coaster. And now
I'm Union, dude.
and Jason. And thanks, Jim, for being with us. I really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, no problem. I just wanted to get back to the vaccines real quick. When my son was born, we're in a hospital, and the nurse is coming in ready to give him the Hep B shot. And I go, what's that for? She goes, oh, it's a hepatitis B shot. I go, yeah, but that's for like drug addicts and people that are having sex. I go, yeah, I know. But I go, why are you giving it to them now? She goes, we just want to get it out of the way.
No, it's really because it's the 1986 Act and they need to usher it in to the pediatric schedule so that they can have immunity.
That's right. Just get it out of the way. I go, no, he's 27 hours old. He doesn't need it. And I didn't get it in the hospital. And then 5 weeks later, I got him the rotavirus. I made a mistake, like a liquid form, and he was in the hospital for 5 days from the reaction from it. And they wouldn't admit that it was from the vaccine.
Wow.
That he went in the hospital. I go, he just took it. They go, well, I can't answer that question when I would ask the doctors. We can't answer that.
And that's what caused
Vax movie. Did you see the Vax movie with the lady that brought her son there, and the nurse gave him both. Both her kids are supposed to get vaccinated, and the nurse gave the son both the shots, and then was like, I don't know, okay, anyways, thank you. And it's just like I think I have a lot of respect for science and doctors, but I think we got to stop looking at them as gods. I think it's like what people had with priests for a long time and holy men, where it's like they're the voice of God. It's like, no, dude, they're just human beings. They they go to the bathroom, they crush it. Nobody wants to use the bathroom after that. They swear once in a while. It's just like they do all the things we do, but we got to stop looking at doctors like everything that comes out of their mouth is law, because they're not. Because I met a lot of these guys and they're not street smart at all. They're just good at regurgitating talking points that they know will get them the high score on their test. So I think we need to really start going, listen, man, I trust you, but it's like, you're 26 hours, they want to hit my kids with a 20 after, right when they were born with a gay party drug shot. I like, unless my kids are going to glory holes, I don't think they need those shots.
More than the doctors.
You needed it, not your kids, Sam.
What?
Sam, you needed it, not your kids.
That's so true.
Also, more than the doctors, we are. There's a big thing about foundations and think tanks and science and studies. When they talk about these studies are well financed by the drug companies.
Yep.
And then you have people that are owned by big pharma and the drug companies, including Fauci and Birx, who are coming out and they are, they're singing the same tune. If they got a Gates Foundation grant to do a study, well, nobody else that got a Gates Foundation grant can say anything against that study.
Exactly.
Because they took the money. And that's with every pharmaceutical company study that is financed. My sister was a scientist doctor at UCLA. If she's doing a study for Eli Lilly, well, she's not going to contradict any studies that they're paying for because they're paying her for a study. It's really the medical, just like the military industrial complex.
Medical mafia.
Medical industrial complex. And it's all on the same
so important
level.
Because it is a real issue. It's a real issue with not just doctors, but police officers, lawyers, judges. Like, we put everybody on this pedestal where think about it, right? If you get a ticket, it's always like, oh, it's my word against the cop's word. Why does that matter? Because he picked a different career choice and that he has a better moral compass than you. Like he must be this hierarchy of person that is just doesn't lie, is more loyal, has a better moral compass. We do that with doctors. We do that with scientists. We feel like they don't have all the flaws that the typical human has, right? With dealing with corruption, desire, temptation, all these things. And it's silly. Like, that shouldn't be the case. There's that meme that's going around, like, how much does it take to pay or to buy a scientist or doctor? The same amount it takes to buy a politician. And it's true. Like, they're all just effing humans. Like, it's not like they make you go through some psychological evaluation on like, oh, are you a good moral person? Because if you're dealing with science and you're a doctor and you're writing meds, you have to be a good person and you can't harm anybody. It's like, no, that's silly. So I think there is this issue that if somebody with a white jacket says something, then all of a sudden their word is more important or more valid than the average person.
A doctor gets less than 25 hours of nutritional education in their 4-year of training. They get no education in regards to vaccine administration. No, they just only learn how to administer a vaccine. They get no education on what's in them, the adjuvants, and just in regards to, Mel was saying that there's an operation called Quack Hack, and it's part of the FDA is going after all natural remedies, just like the YouTube takes their directives from the World Hoax Organization from China, that this operation is going after vitamin C. Like Mark Grenaugh of Genesis Church is still in jail in Bogota. His sons are still in jail since July. So as a result, my site is being attacked because I'm peddling hacks like quack. I'm a quack because I sell vitamin C, I sell CBD, I sell silver. So the person who makes our silver is a chemical engineer with a PhD. He graduated from Duke University. He's not able to get any independent study for the silver, which is 4,000 ppm that we make, because Fauchster sits on the Doris Duke Foundation. And where do they get their money from? Kill Gates. So every study is kiboshed. Right. So and they are going after all the natural remedies. Even in Costa Rica, there was a headline, "Don't drink bleach." And they crucified Trump, because arguably he was talking about MMS, mineral salts. And with silver, they'll pretend that you're going to turn into a Smurf. You're not going to. Do I look like a Smurf? I've been taking it for almost 10 years. I have not taken antibiotic after taking it, gobbling it like candy, growing up in the 80s. So they are going after natural remedies, and they want people to forget that they have an immune system, and they only, just like they crucified HCQ.
There's also an agenda to brand everybody that isn't on board with vaccines as being anti-science. And that is not the case. I mean, there might be a few that are like, let's put it in God's hands and just hope for the best, you know what I mean, with this baby. But there are a lot of people that are very much pro-science. And that's the reason why they're having questions about the vaccines. Not because they're ignorant morons that don't know any better, but because they figure, well, before I inject something into my kid, I'm going to do some research and just make sure that everything is fine. And what they're finding out is there are a lot of questions about it. There's $4.2 billion that has been paid out already by the VAERS court. More than half of that is from the flu shot alone. And by the way, that number should be 100 times higher than it is, because you have to jump through unbelievable hoops to even get in there. And most of the cases are dismissed. It's run by the Department of Homeland Security or Health and Human Services and the DOJ. It's a joke of a court. And they've still paid out more money than the Catholic Church has paid out for raping kids. And everybody knows that the Catholic Church has a problem with that. That's not some big mystery, but Big Pharma has paid out. Well, technically we've paid out, because the money for this $4.2 billion settlement fund comes from everybody that purchases a vaccine. 75 cents goes into this pot and they pay it out. So I asked the question, why would you pay out $4.2 billion to settle product liability claims, even when you have a blanket immunity for product liability claims, unless there is a problem with your product? This is logic and reason. And if you inject this into somebody, their heads explode. They can't process logic and reason. And if you question the science, you question the vaccine schedule, you question the fact that there's immunity for them, you question why autism has exploded, you're the crazy person for bringing it up, for having the audacity to challenge a doctor because he wears a fucking white coat. And so you can't question anything that he's done. Well, I'm sorry. But
they gaslight now.
Doctors can't admit it, because for them to admit, a guy, let's say you're a pediatrician 25 years in, comes to the realization that maybe these shots are hurting kids. Think about the cognitive dissonance there for this guy. He's invested his entire life to be a doctor. He's done a quarter of a century of harm that he didn't mean to do. He's got to process that. He's got to deal with his peers that will all know that none of them will support him if he decides to blow the whistle. They're in a really tough situation if they come to this realization. So the system is created in a way that it protects this. It perpetuates this silence in the doctors. It silences victims with threat of clawbacks at 10 times the amount of payback if you breach your gag order when you receive your settlement. So it's a dirty business. And we're not conspiracy theorist weirdos for asking the questions about this. We're just logical people taking a look and saying, there's a problem. We've traced it back to this could be a real big source of it. Maybe not all of it, but a huge source of it. And we have questions about, nope, take the vaccine or get out of my pediatrician's office. You're banned from here. You can never come back. For what? For questioning this? This happens all the time. It's insane.
And now they're peddling the flu vaccine as we face the greatest fall, the darkest winter. And you have people like Birx saying to take the flu vaccine when in reality, it makes you more vulnerable to get the Rona.
Right.
Well, that was a Pentagon study, that they saw it was like 30 something, like
36%.
More likely to get a coronavirus. Yeah. I mean, I know people critique that study, but I mean, that says something. I mean, the flu vaccine for a long time before Robert Kennedy Jr. got the Marisol taken out was told for a long time, oh, there's nothing to worry about. There's nothing to worry about. And then finally it's, he proves that in court that it's harmful. It's more mercury than your body should be ingesting, and they remove it. But what about all those doctors and pediatricians that were giving out that vaccine prior to that and telling you there's nothing to worry about?
You were getting kickbacks. They were
But
getting kickbacks.
Yeah.
Pharma is a big, big business. They are chemical companies. Don't forget, Bill Gates does invest in Monsanto, does invest in Moderna, does invest in all these companies. When he gives all this money away and people think he's being such a big philanthropist with his Gates Foundation, the money's going back into companies he has invested in. And at the end of the day, I still will always go back to, it's more about depopulation than the opposite.
Totally.
If somebody thinks that there's too many people on this planet and their main goal is eugenics and depopulation, and then they tell us to take a vaccine, maybe that's the problem. Maybe not looking at weight, but that doesn't make sense. Like, why would somebody who's stated that there's 15% more people on the planet than there should be making a vaccine that everyone should take? I don't know what to do anymore, but then it comes out last week that Bill Gates paid over $400 million to different media outlets, including buying a big chunk of Comcast and buying a big chunk of Time Warner. So, we're not really told, and he's in cahoots with Soros. But at the end of the day, I don't know why, I don't know when or how these people that are controlling this whole vaccine movement got the right to decide. It seems like they stole it, because I don't know how Bill Gates earned it, because it seems like his vaccine and his AIDS projects have killed more people than they've helped.
Don't forget that the MS in MSNBC stands for Microsoft.
Right.
So
yeah. This was a guy that was probably like a nerd and has like a revenge fantasy, and he's succeeded.
I mean, his family, they come from eugenicists. I mean,
exactly.
It's depopulation. I mean, those are terms that 10 years ago, even like 5 years ago, a lot of people kind of poo-pooed and laughed at if you bring them up. But now it's quite obvious. I mean, Margaret Sanger, who people would talk over and over again about, a racist who really, her motivation wasn't to try to get poor African Americans birth control, but what she was trying to do was depopulate them by getting them birth control. And
Black Lives Matter.
And Bill Gates' father funded Planned Parenthood.
And her name is finally being taken off a lot of buildings and streets and a bunch of stuff, because they're finally admitting that, this person that they idolize was actually motivated by her racist views and her, wanting to depopulate the minorities. And that's why the first, whatever it was called, like the birth control clinic of America, whatever the hell it was called, the birth control place that was open in like a poor part of New York, because they were trying to get and they only had minorities working there because they're trying to attract minorities. And so it's quite obvious. These things, this is where there's a little bit of sign of hope, because all these things that were fringe not too long ago are now things that people are looking at from a completely different perspective, and people are much more open-minded to a lot of these things, I think.
I got a question for Jim Florentine, if you guys don't mind. This maybe along the same subject matter. I don't know. Vince Neil, too many vaccines. What's going on with him lately?
Vince Neil, what?
Vince Neil. Have you seen him sing lately?
Yeah.
He cannot. I don't know if you've seen like the most recent Motley Crue concert, but he cannot form words and sing at all.
Look, he's almost 60 years old. The guy's just, he's an old school rocker who still drinks and smokes and gets high and lives like he's 25 years old. So that's obviously going to affect his voice. He doesn't care. He's got a huge belly. I almost respect him in that sense. He's like, look, I'm worth $25 million. I give up. I'm good. I just want to enjoy my life. I don't want to be working out 6 days a week anymore. I just want to have fun. But no, he's always had voice problems, especially live. But now it's out of control.
They should do what Ozzy does, right? Doesn't Ozzy go on tour with someone backstage and like who actually sings the words? Because I saw Ozzy in '92 and he couldn't sing, and he literally run around like an infant baby in diapers. They just going out the rails, and he didn't care because it was Ozzy. Can't imagine what it is. So the rumor is that there's someone backstage that actually does the singing, and he just sits in front of the mic, and everyone's like, yeah. But that's no different than a lot of these rock stars and like these pop divas who have to dance and sing. I mean, like I had one bit where I was running from a zombie, and I would run and I would talk and I would just be almost dead. And that was just one little bit. So I couldn't imagine, doing an entire hour and a half of choreography.
Yeah, well, now they got a lot of backing tracks, so a lot of the bands use them, the older bands. I don't know if Ozzy ever had someone singing, like he was singing, because he would, a lot of times he couldn't hit the notes, but just because he was Ozzy, you forgave him.
Yeah.
Because he was so silly up there. So, I mean, if they were going to make it perfect, he would have hit the notes. So, but now they got all those computers and all that stuff, and everyone sounds amazing in concerts. So I'm on the fence about that. But, you do want to hear this kind of, you don't want to hear a guy croaking up there like Vince sometimes. When you go to a Motley Crue show, you're like, this is terrible.
Are you touring yet, Jim? Are you doing gigs?
A little bit, some outdoor shows. I'm on the East Coast, so while it's still warm, there's a bunch of outdoor comedy shows we could do. But once it gets cold here, everything's going to shut back down, guaranteed. I've
been doing some touring. I've seen one Biden sign the whole time. One.
That's great.
Oh yeah,
one more than me.
It's unbelievable how these polls it's so bad, but it's just like it's like they say about lizard people, they can't create anything new. So they just keep doing the same trick over and over and over again. They think making these polls just blatantly deceiving people that somehow this will trick people in to voting for Biden. I mean, what do you guys think of the Joe Rogan thing? Like, I love Joe Rogan. He's my friend. I'm like, why would you insert yourself into that? I love you to pieces, but now you're kind of forcing the DNC's hand at this point, one way or the other. I think that's dangerous, dude.
Yeah, I know. He doesn't, Joe's got a big audience, and he's, they're like, don't put that message out there because you got a bunch of guys that might be on the fence on who they're going to vote for. You can't, you live in
no chance
anymore. It's like, you got to toe the line. Don't say that stuff. And they're freaking out that he's saying that. It was almost like Howard Stern back in the day. He had that.
No, but the new thing, dude, he wants to moderate a debate between.
I know. I saw that. I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm saying it is dangerous now because and he's in Austin. He's like, I don't give a shit. I'm not going for Hollywood roles. So you can't. But who knows what they're going to do to him?
He don't.
Just that he's putting that out there.
We gonna send Mossad to take out Rogan. He's got like a black belt and everything. Good luck on that.
Well, he had Adam Curry on first episode, back, which I thought was pretty badass. And what's funny, if you hear Adam Curry, I don't know if it was the show right before or right after they released the Rogan show. He was talking about, he's like, yeah, Rogan wanted to jump right into the vaccine conversation, and he's like, dude, he's like, this is your new platform. I'm like the big first guest on, and he wanted to jump right in. He's like, I'm super high, and he's like, I wasn't ready to just start talking about vaccines. So it made me wonder, oh shit, he kind of tiptoed around that topic a lot on YouTube when he was just on YouTube and didn't have the Spotify deal. And now it seems like for him to jump in on it, and he listens to Adam Curry's show, the No Agenda show, and obviously knows Adam Curry personally. He knows where he stands in all this. I mean, No Agenda has been doing some of the best research and work on this whole lockdown this whole time. So the fact that he's willing to get into that conversation immediately makes me think what Sam was saying and some other people were saying right off the bat was true, that maybe he was holding back. Maybe he was tiptoeing around certain topics because of the censorship, and he was trying to maybe monetize his YouTube channel as much as he can for the time being. And then once he hit the road and got his deal, he's like, well, fuck that. Now I'm open to say what I want and what I want. And so that's interesting, because I mean, Del Bigtree, when he was on my show at the very end of it, one of the last times he was on, he was saying, he's like, oh, fuck Joe Rogan. He's like, we've been trying to get Robert Kennedy Jr. on the show, myself. We know we have mutual friends. We're trying to, all this stuff. He's like, and you figure Robert Kennedy Jr., I mean, he obviously can, you figure he knows people who could probably talk to Joe Rogan's people. And he was saying right off the bat that hey, he doesn't want anything to do with our side of the debate. But now it looks like, well, maybe that's why. Maybe because he saw this was prior to the Spotify deal being public. Maybe, he knew right around the corner he'd be able to be more open about these topics. We know for a fact, because he's talked about it openly, that he was upset about the censorship of doctors and people talking about vitamin D and vitamin C and zinc and anything to do with immune systems. So, I want to believe that there is hope, and maybe his platform with such a big reach will be much more open to this debate, because this is people, unfortunately, people look up to Joe Rogan, and if Joe Rogan, just like I'm a lot of people who are famous, and if he says something like, hey, like vaccines are safe, or he has somebody like Dr. Ortiz or any
he had
other
Ortiz on.
schmucks on that are for vaccines, people are going to be like, you know what, I'm going to vaccinate my kid because Joe Rogan's a smart dude. I respect him. He's on this side. So I'm not going to do my own research. I'm just going to believe him. So the thing is, like, he needs people like him. Obviously, he doesn't have to do anything, but hopefully he understands that there's a lot of people who aren't going to even question it because he's not questioning it, and they respect him.
Is it true that he tests any guest that comes on for the Rona? That he said that, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Isn't that a little excessive?
I mean, I think he has to do it because of the laws, because he's flying these people in and out.
The rules, right?
Yeah. I mean, I know he had to do it for California because of the draconian rules there and the contact tracing. But, the one thing that I thought was interesting is he said he wanted it just to be him, Trump, and Biden in a room for 4 hours. Does anyone think there's been a recent day in the last few weeks or months that Biden has been conscious for 4 hours straight, let alone able to debate and talk? I mean, like, that's a real question. If you think about it, the last time you saw him on stage for even 2 or 3 hours were those DNC primary debates. He hasn't been out in public for more than 45 minutes and God knows how long. So forget about crumbling.
Is it an act?
Come on, man.
Come on, man.
I wonder too.
And Joe get him
it's
super
an act.
high before it too, so he'd be extra tired.
I want to know who the fuck won't be watching if they finally get those two on a debate stage, because that'll be the best TV ever. Like, we don't know what the fuck was going to happen. It's I mean, there's some of the shit that comes out of Joe Biden's mouth. I mean, people think like all the people on the left are like, oh yeah, Trump just says what he thinks and whatever. I'm like, Joe Biden is telling black people that you're not black.
Got hairy legs.
That was good. He actually just said that Trump is wanting to defund the police. He actually said that. It's like, and the people who hate Trump, do you actually watch him? Sure, it could all be political theater, but do you actually watch him? Because I do every single day for the past 7 months. I've never.
Why do you
watched...
hate yourself?
What if the October surprise?
Why would you do that? I can't watch any of this theater, dude.
Why do you hate
it's
yourself?
just such poison, and it's just like listen, man. I believe that there is a lot of connection between. I think Trump represents a different crime boss. I think he's a crime boss of a different group.
Right.
But man, there's a lot of similarities between this election, in my opinion, and when Obama got elected, in that they, the other side, after George Bush Jr., America hated white guys, especially older white guys. So how do you counter that? Smooth black, right? Smooth black comes in, good looking guy, really cool, comes out of nowhere, junior senator out Illinois. And who they have him up against? The most crotchety old man you could possibly pick, which is John McCain, right? And then the double down on how bad it is, out of nowhere, they bring in Sarah Palin, who was just sounded great for about 20 seconds. And then they're like, it's like Doug Stanhope's joke. It's like, what's the difference between Sarah Palin's mouth and her vagina? Only the half of the shit that comes out of her vagina is retarded, right? So, I mean, so my point is this, let's take a look at Biden and Biden. I mean, who is really energized about this? Nobody. And then Harris, there's a million people that could fit all those boxes that would be better than Harris. Why Harris?
But Harris, Obama and Soros and them wanted Harris. She was their choice. And when she started to fit, she was the first one to drop out that was big in the Democratic primary. So I think they already knew. I mean, everyone knows. But the scariest part is I speak to people all the time that tell me 10 reasons why Joe Biden's better than Trump. So I don't know. I don't know what they're watching.
Yeah, but the thing is, people are not voting for Biden. They're voting. It's
against Trump.
Yeah, against Trump, and that's not the way you should vote. I mean, I don't think you should vote at all. It's all fucking theater. It doesn't matter.
Right.
But
it's like Golda Meir said back in the day that if the Palestinians loved their children more than they hated the Jews, it would be a lot better, a lot easier to make peace. And we're in America right now thinking, if the American people loved America and their children more than they hated Trump, they would never vote for Biden. But now about 10 people
At least
a day will
turn
tell
on
you
your
10
own
reasons.
party. I mean,
What?
turn on your own party. This shouldn't be acceptable. The fact that the DNC, I mean, the left wanted Bernie. I mean, this is twice that they wanted Bernie, and they force fed you whoever they thought should be the face of the party. But I mean, the youth movement, all the young people, I mean, they wanted Bernie, and then you give them Joe Biden. Who the hell likes Joe Biden? But what Sam said was very important. They try to give you something drastically different than the last person, and I think that. I think a lot of the love to Obama was because he was drastically different than Bush, and Bush got us in wars. He did a horrible job with September 11th, and wink wink was probably responsible for it. But at least, but the thing is that he was drastically different, and because we hated Bush so much, it was easy to fall in love with Obama because he seemed drastically different. And I think we can get caught up in this where it's the same thing. We hate the left so much that we want to believe somebody from the right's the savior, and we can't get caught up in that because the truth is we're still in wars. The truth is you
guys think he took down the troops though, Ricky? I mean, I don't know, because every time something's that seems like it's a good thing, a million people on the other side tell me why it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out, is this troop reduction a good thing?
Sam, I just want to say Tim Kennedy actually talked about it on Rogan's program. So he actually admitted that the troop reduction in Iraq would then deploy these people to other units around the world. So it's not like they're necessarily coming back to the United States. To Trump's point, at least he talks about the military-industrial complex. We have not had a modern-day president do so in a negative manner
Just like
yet.
he talks about Big Pharma.
Well, exactly. And again, passing something with an executive order that, whether you like it or not, is a platform that somebody like Bernie Sanders and the left has ran on forever to try to take out their steam. And I think it was Grassley. Chuck Grassley was the only one that gave him credit for cutting that and letting you get generic drugs. I'm no Trump cheerleader by any means. I think we all know this, but 2020 has been wild. And I want to propose something to everybody. What if the October surprise, I mean, this is a serious question, is Biden stroking out on Halloween?
He's going to, there's a very good possibility. I was going to ask you guys, is he going to swap out? Do any of you think they're going to swap him
the only way they can actually swap him out.
That could be a lot of different things, especially in this Me Too movement. Come on, man. It could be a whole bunch of different stuff.
Hey, Sam, let me ask you something. Sam, you think that Biden and Trump, are they going to have a debate, or is Biden going to back out, or something's going to happen?
I mean, have we ever gone this long without a debate?
I mean, so.
It's, and the whole thing is if I was on the left, which I used to be, I'd be I want my guy out there.
Right.
But I mean, it's I can't believe nobody, and I think a lot of this stuff with the Antifa and all that stuff and these arsons, dude, it's unbelievable that Gavin Newsom had the balls to go and be look at this. This is climate change. And you're you spelled direct energy weapons wrong, you fucking piece of shit. And Antifa sentence. It's just unbelievable to me. But back to Jimmy's point, it's they're going to hold it to as long as they can until the last second, because I actually think Trump will take it easy on him, because Trump seems to be able to. When they brought up Trump, he showed a lot of kindness to him when discussing his mental abilities to be president.
Sam, they scheduled it. They scheduled it for the 29th. I'm not sure if it's in person or it's online, but they've now set an actual date. It's supposed to happen the 29th, 2 weeks
September.
From now. Yeah.
We'll see, dude. I mean,
you should do a live stream. Watch it live.
Get your popcorn.
They should do pay-per-view.
Well, it's going to be dude, Jimmy, cancel any comedy shows you have that night, because no one's going to be going to a comedy show that night. They're going to be watching that. I mean, nothing. I will turn that on just to see if the Duke can make it to the end of it. This is a old Mike Tyson fight. You're who's he fighting? And can he make it to the second round?
Yeah.
Well, what's it? Oh, go ahead.
So I was to say, to answer your question, why I hate myself, why I watch him, is because I used to be on the left, and the hatred for Orange Man, it's the hatred that made me I'm going to watch this guy. At least he's fucking funny. He makes me laugh, and I'm trying to decode and I'm trying to figure out. And I do think on most days that it's all political theater, and we can blame us for wanting to have some hopium and to be like, is anyone in politics good? Does anyone have integrity? So that's the reason I watch.
Trump is different because you look at the vaccine thing. He's the only president that I know that has ever publicly questioned it. Okay. You look at 9/11, right? There's video of him being interviewed after September 11th, talking about how he's like, I've been in many construction meetings. I've been a part of infrastructure, for a long time. He's like, I understand construction. I've talked to engineers. He's like, that's not normal. He's like something.
But Ricky, let me say this, man. Like Trump knows how to lean into things, right? So, for instance, he finally gets asked about QAnon, right? And he's known about QAnon. He's known about the fact that people are showing up to rallies in this. Obviously, he has briefings on it. So when the interviewer gets specific and says, well, what about the claims that you're saving the world from a group of satanic pedophile cannibals? What does he say? He goes, well, we have this radical left philosophy that we are fighting. And first he goes, wait, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Yeah, so right out of the gates, he turns it on the reporter, very smart. Would that be a good thing or a bad thing? And then he talks about the radical left, and he goes, you know what? We are actually. Fuck it. We're going full board. He knows how to lean into it without saying, yeah, my group of people were in there for the deep state. And basically he's just saying he's going after those that are going after him. Let's be honest about it. I don't think that QAnon is some huge operation one way or the other. I think it started as a LARP. God knows where it is right now. But we all know it's basically juju and astrology for people that want to believe in hopium, right? He knows that's still part of his base. And he's smart enough to exploit it. Just like he knows people that believe that we were lied to about 9/11 are part of his base. He knows the Jones crew is part of his base. And just like he's smart enough when he says, I'll have a vaccine possibly before the election, and then Biden and Harris come out and go, whoa, we don't know if it's going to save. What are you, an anti-vaxxer? What are you, anti-science? He's not a dumb guy. And that's what kills me is no matter how you feel about him, if you think he's an idiot, you have not paid attention to the last 40 plus years he's been in the public eye.
Right. And he's been having fun. I mean, his debate in Vegas, he was having the best time. We were like, this is like a comedy show. It was like, and he hit everything. It was like he could do that on, every night in Vegas. He was hitting jokes. Everyone was in, and he was getting the laughs. He was loving every minute of it. The guy is walking around like he won. That's why I have hope. I'm reading him and seeing a man who says, we got him. I got him. Because I believe his only promise he didn't keep was locking her up. And I believe he still believes he wants to keep that promise.
Just locking her up is going to be just like Obama shutting down Gitmo. We're just going to be like, well, he just couldn't do it.
Or Ricky, that we're actually going to get Assange over here for good things and we're not going to prosecute him. That's another huge thing right now. We haven't talked about that.
I like this Burmese dude. Whoever this Burmese guy is, I'm like.
Well, no one's talking about that this week in the United States, man. Right now, that trial is coming to fruition, where they will extradite him on a phony indictment that is his administration's and will end free speech forever. And we have to push back against that. Again, he's not an idiot. You think it was a coincidence right before the Supreme Court says that Edward Snowden did the right thing, that he was saying, we're going to look at this Snowden thing. Totally obfuscating the fact the man ran on. Love the WikiLeaks. Can't get enough of the WikiLeaks. How about those WikiLeaks? By the way, what do you think about that Julian Assange being torn out of the Ecuadorian embassy? I don't know much about that.
Right?
I don't know much about that.
Exactly. Why was that his reaction?
Well, because he knew the press would never call him on it, because they want Julian's head too, because they work for the same billionaire puppeteers that are suppressing information. This is nuts.
Yes,
we are going to make it illegal to literally put out there
like
the
that
evidence
Jack
against
Nicholson,
international
like,
war criminals.
gift.
What the fuck? No one's scared. We got tens of thousands of people in the streets across the world for George fucking Floyd, and this guy has literally been tortured the last couple years in Belmarsh for literally exposing people fucking rape. You want to talk about kid rape? How about the kids that got raped in Abu Ghraib prison in front of their fucking parents that we know about? Those people didn't get in trouble. Abu Ghraib still exists. All these fucking puppets on the left that ran in 2008 with Obama, whether it was Edwards, Hillary, and yes, Biden, they all ran on we're getting out of Iraq and we're closing down Gitmo. No one even talks about that shit anymore. No one even talks about it.
Right.
I
Right.
just saw
this
some
is like
jobs
Jason is
recruiting
like-
people for Gitmo.
Jason's one of those those great researchers, and what I really have a problem with a lot of those guys that are always like going deep into research is like they can't sit there and go, yeah, I like this though. You know, everything is doom and gloom because, you know, like I've said, we lived in this time from like Reagan, probably even Tricky Dick, you know, that we've had just horrible people in there. And I'm not saying Trump is going to walk on water or anything like that, man. But it's like, if you can't sit there and go, these things are actually pretty good that he did, I can't have a conversation with you because you're so blind or deaf, man.
Yeah.
And there are things that Trump did. So you could do what Jason does, and I see him do all the time, which is call Trump out on his BS. But you know, just hearing him right now, it's like, that's been my opinion for the last like 3 years. It's like, okay, I like this. I like the stuff that he does. I like the shit talking he does. I like that he doesn't just kowtow and play the game. It's like he seems to be on the up and up. So like when he does something, he does it. Now there are things that we don't like his thumb on the, you know, Israeli-Palestine thing. I want peace in the Middle East. The stuff that he's doing with his Jared Kushner, you know, it's like nobody really talks about what General Flynn was really doing when he met with Russia. Nobody ever talks about that at all. Okay.
Yeah.
And then we could go through a couple other things. I'll have a conversation about that. But it's like if you can't talk about what he's done right, then then you're just a child.
Could you imagine if he was really playing 4D chess and the mandatory vaccines were all placebos?
Jesus. That'd still be scary
with everybody. He'd make them mandatory, but they'd all be like saline. And
I've actually heard Charlie Freak say that they're going to be a therapeutic. I'm not taking my chances, but I don't know if you've heard of Charlie Freak.
You first, dude.
Yeah, exactly. No, thanks. I don't need a placebo or a therapeutic. Got my immune system, thanks.
Well, even when we talk about the vaccines that they're talking about, I mean, again, I'll give Trump credit. Aside from the hydroxychloroquine, what did he say 3 weeks ago? He said, we'll do the convalescent plasma treatment. That will give you the antibodies. Well, guess what? All of these vaccine trials are just that. None of them are even telling you they're going to prevent the disease or even hopefully lower the mortality rate. They are advertising as such. You will get the antibodies possibly for a few weeks to a few months if this is successful. So again, I give the guy credit for trying to, you know, basically battle what he can. I'm glad he's talked shit about the World Health Organization and get us out there. I wish he would go further and just ban the UN. That's what he needs to do. Nationalize the UN building and kick them the fuck out of New York. I would be all about that. You know, that would be a huge Trump move. If you want to make a statement against an organization that is obviously politically going for your throat, that's how you do it. They have no business in this country, especially when they're talking about mandatory quarantines, endorsing China-style lockdowns, and what? Saying we're not going to go back to normal until 2022 if we're lucky? I mean, this is madness.
Yeah, I know that, you know, a lot of people are super negative against a lot of things. I know that, you know, Jason, you're not a Q guy, and I'm just kind of open-minded to everything. But it's just like the things that he's done has really been like we've never seen a president do this. And for me, man, the reason I believe that there's a part of the government that is pushing back is those Hillary sending emails to the Chinese government in real time, meaning every single email she ever emailed went to the Chinese government. So if she just, you know, hit Postmates back because she didn't get a soda with her order, you know, the Chinese government got that email. And that to me is a big thing. And I think a lot of people, you put that with Benghazi, you put that with, you know, ISIS killing American troops using American weapons, the Chinese email, and Benghazi. I think there's a large part of this government, a part of this our government that is still patriotic. that's not all just, sellouts and treasonous pieces of shit, but actually people who do care about the government. And doesn't have to be all of them, just enough that comes together to push back. And I really do believe that's what's happening. And we are seeing the end of the Bush Klan. The Republican Party got rid of the Bush Klan when they got Trump. And now the Democratic Party, this is the last of this stronghold of this group that George Bush Sr. basically used to destroy the country. That's my opinion.
I want to believe, Sam, but then I see those war games they're running with, the old neocons of rebuilding America's defenses, and then the old Obama crew of Podesta playing Biden, and they war gamed it in every scenario, and they said, you know what? If Trump wins in a landslide, we still won't concede. And then we'll say that California needs to be broken up into 5 states, and then we'll say that we need to recognize Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico as a state too, and we'll draw it out until January 21st, when we'll anoint Pelosi the president. Just putting that on paper and having Podesta play Biden. Look, man, there's no doubt in my mind who I'm voting for this year. And, a lot of people have given me shit about that. I took the lesser of two evils last time, this time, and I was never that guy. If there was a good protest vote, maybe. But you're right. I mean, you look at it, there's a 1-minute ad out right now for Joe Biden, the plan. First of all, it's 60 seconds, and they have to cut 6 times. Okay? So in other words, he couldn't keep it fucking together for more than 10 seconds. It's amazing to watch. But during that, he talks about the mandatory mask mandate and how it's patriotic. First of all, how the fuck does he know what's going on in January when he would be the president? He's literally telling you that he's going to mask up the nation no matter what. No matter what the science is or isn't. He's telling you that, and by that it will be mandatory vaccinations in this nation, and people are going to go along with it. I'm just saying this. It's been a wild 2020. I think October to January is going to show us some different things that we never thought we'd see. You think riots? I mean, riots? We didn't see riots in this country since Rodney King. And now it's just like literally you turn on the news or flip on your phone or whatever you get your media on, and it's not even a shock anymore that a major city is on fire. It's nuts.
Do you think the next wave, I think we're going into a third wave, not a second wave, but do you think the lockdowns are going to be lock-ins?
I mean, if we let them do what they're doing to Victoria and Melbourne, and again, that is UN suggestions, right? Yeah. I don't know what to say. Right. I never thought we'd get this far, but there's been no pushback on Cuomo in this state. That's why I'm leaving it. It's incredible to me that, again, he can just outwardly hold press conferences and say, yep, I'm giving this to Bloomberg, Gates, Schmidt, come on in, Bezos, and no one is pushing back whatsoever. They're just leaving. Or they have enough money, they just figure they'll wait it out upstate New York. That's crazy to me.
Jason, my worst case scenario in my head, and I know you think along these lines sometimes, is that, God forbid, Joe Biden does win, and after he's in, then they go after him for uranium one or whatever else, and suddenly the UN is taking over our country.
I think that the United Nations, if
the UN comes, then you grab your gun and it's time to go. And it's like, that's it, man. You get foreign troops on our soil. Like, I know there could be like, in Chicago, they got some UN trucks or somewhere in Texas. But if they come to patrol, man, that is an invasion by another country. And it's time to fucking rock and roll. Okay. And I'm sorry, but at some point you got to decide, are you men? Are you men? Are you grown-ups? Are you grown-ups? Are we just going to sit there and get cucked by this group? And do you want to live in that world where your grandchildren like, Grandpa, why do you do anything?
Why they've social engineered men and weakened them.
Time to die, dog. Time to die. What a great day it would be to die, dog.
Listen,
bring it, dude.
Let's talk some positive.
Pumping shotguns, calling up. I love everybody. I got a jam. Babies are calling. I love everybody. This is another great show. Oh, also, I think we should all talk about whether we should do a giant election day show. Like they kind of did the end of the year, end of the world podcast. I don't think they'll be doing it at the Comedy Store because it will be closed down. Maybe we should get as many of our friends on here as we can, and we just kind of walk everybody through it. So I just wanted to throw that out. Great show, everybody.
Nice to see you, Sam.
Always a pleasure, guys. Always a pleasure. Take care, everybody.
Yeah, Sam.
Let me just be one positive thing. Have you guys seen what happened a few weeks back in Idaho? Is everybody drawing a blank here? All right. So in Idaho, They stormed the Capitol. Okay, there was an emergency session that they had put together for basically it was coronavirus financing. And these people, while they were getting arrested, while they were pushing back, said this is our house, demanded that this special session basically voted on the lockdowns. And they voted to take them away. So this is the Congress of the state of Idaho voting to end all the lockdowns 100%. Immediately, the governor who called it into session said that was not on the original agenda, so it is completely illegitimate. The Senate is still going to go through with the vote. And I believe that these people en masse charging their capital, demanding that, and using force, I'm going to be quite honest, they pushed past the police. These videos are must-watches and have been suppressed in this country. This is the next step if we don't want it to get really violent, is to pass these things in our local state congresses and state senates. And then if these people do not want to comply with ending the lockdowns, well, we got to get our sheriffs involved. These people need to go to jail. They need to be arrested. I don't know any other way around it. I wish I had better answers, but things again have gotten so wild where I have people telling me it's a good idea to defund the police. I walk downtown in my little small town and people are in masks everywhere. It is every day is the Twilight Zone for me, guys. I don't know how you feel, but that's how I feel.
For all of us. Is Idaho red?
With me, we're living in a lawless. I mean, New York City is literally lawless. I mean, the criminals are running the show here. It's a dirty and it's everyone's.
Are you going to move, Mel?
I'm trying to stay here to be here for the apocalypse. But it's getting there. It's getting there. I feel like I don't want to leave. Like I feel like that feeling of 9/11 too, where it's like, wait, I want to figure out how to fight this. But like Jason said, I don't see any groups, especially in New York City, fighting back. And 9 times out of 10, I talk to somebody and they, especially in Manhattan for some reason, they can tell me why Cuomo did a good job and why Biden's better than Trump. Yeah, still. Watching all of this, and it's completely it's like cognitive dissonance, but it's like you're talking to somebody who's literally their brain is not functioning normal. And
I think it's because they have so much hate for Orange Man that it's blinded them.
But how can you hate somebody that much that you would throw your country and all your freedom and your Bill of Rights away, possibly to be taken over by the UN?
I have friends that say, I'll vote for a monkey. I'll vote for a Mickey Mouse. I'll vote for a like anything but Trump. I don't know. They're if I stand up, they call me a racist. It's like, hello, I'm brown. Call me a religious zealot. Oh, you must support MAGA idiots.
And what has he done? That's so to hate. They just hate him. But how do you hate somebody that much that you can't see any of the good? None.
Don't even bother to look for the good. They don't even listen to him. They know what the media is telling them.
Well, this is how good of a job they've done dividing and conquering. I had Dennis McKenna on my show for the second time. He was on some years ago, but I had him on recently. And he's the brother of Terrence McKenna, which a lot of people might know, the big into psychedelics and mushrooms. And this guy's huge in plant medicines. And we, the first time he was on, we talked about it nonstop, all the benefits of it, all the benefits of self-reflecting while, using these plant medicines and being able to find your inner thoughts and your feelings and how you really feel about certain topics. And this last time I had him on, we started talking, and initially, I don't know how we got into it, but we started talking about politics and what's going on in the world. And he immediately went on like this Biden anti-Trump rant. And Charlie, I think you heard, did you listen to that show? You did, right? Yeah. And I got so much negative feedback from that. They're like, this guy is crazy. And all I could think about was like the power of psychedelics, even the power of all the mushrooms in the world, couldn't help him see past this political nonsense. Like that's the power of, that's how good they are at dividing and conquering. That this guy, his brother is like the godfather of psychedelics. I mean, people, his speeches and all this stuff is so inspirational. And yet he uses
Talk
it.
About satanic magic. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Well, it is unbelievable because the people on the left that are trying to promote this BLM idea, it's like, hey, Robert Byrd was one of his mentors, the Grand Dragon of the KKK, spoke at his funeral. wasn't the only funeral he spoke of. Other KKK members actually did that 3 other times. On top of that, ran as a segregationist in the 90s with the busing. Let's forget about the fact. Yes, in the 90s, 1990, I have him on camera. You go to C-SPAN and go see him talking about it and talking about affirmative action and all these things. And you're just like, your mind is blown. The guy's on camera talking about helping to cover up the Pakistani role in 9/11, the $100,000 wire transfer to Muhammad Atta. He met with General Mahmoud Ahmed, who facilitated that to him during the week of 9/11, threatened Pakistan on the floor. And remember, if you believe anything on the official version, Dan Rather put it out there in 2002. He was being protected by the Pakistani military in a Pakistani hospital, September 10th. Anybody can watch that CBS footage. Where did they supposedly find him? Abbottabad, Pakistan. So the guy's blatantly lied about the war on terror. He was part of Operation Timber Sycamore for Syria, which we still haven't gotten out of. All right. And then on top of that, on all those things that I just said, there is a multitude of videos of him on the halls of government manhandling children. Manhandling children. Not once, not twice, not 3 times, at least 5 or 6 times. Where if that was my daughter, I don't know how I would be able to physically restrain myself from taking him by the throat and asking him why he just put his mouth right next to her neck and breathed on it. I mean, this is a wild time. And now this guy's not even fucking he's senile. He's got dementia. You fucking put that in there and anybody can argue any point. I'm just like, where are we? Where are we? I mean, you don't actually believe you want this guy. You just literally hate the other guy that much.
That much.
Exactly.
That much.
He wanted to end raves. He specifically said that he wanted to end raves, and he said, make up an excuse to put them in prison. Who wants to end raves? How dare you? How un-American is that, man? That dude needs to roll his balls off one night till like 3 o'clock in the morning with Mickey Mouse hands and glow sticks. And
I think everybody needs to roll. I think everybody needs to drop some X.
Right after the shooting of those cops, he puts out a tweet saying that we have to take away automatic weapons. I thought, your answer to the shooting of 2 cops, the assassination attempt of 2 cops in their car, is to send a tweet an hour later saying that there's no reason to have assault weapons in America? I'm thinking, wait a minute, who's writing this? And then people say, well, I understand what he's saying. And I'm saying, it's so off. It's as if I'm at a point where whoever's doing his Twitter, I feel like is working for Trump. I don't know what's happening.
What do you mean? You didn't like that commercial with the car where he was driving around and looking like a hip young guy with a Corvette from 1964? I mean, come on. We're in some. You know what? I forgot. He's also on camera. Riding. If 2019 wasn't the prequel for this, you got to understand the guy's on camera bragging about getting off a plane, withholding $1 billion from the Ukraine if they don't fire a prosecutor investigating his son on the spot. Not like tomorrow, like I'm on a plane in 8 hours. He says that shit next to the head of the CFR, Richard Haas, who's laughing, and his minion. And you know what the result of that was? Trump got impeached. How the fuck does that work? That's literally how that ended up. Trump did a phone call being like, I saw this video and it's pretty shady and what's going on with this investigation? We'll impeach him for that. He's going after a political rival. I mean, meanwhile, you got a literal gangster, Joey fucking B, cackling about $1 billion to have a prosecutor fired. That, I mean, again, almost nothing surprises me, but then everything surprises me.
Yeah. Do you think he'll be swapped out?
I started laughing when I saw that Adam Schiff throws out there that now he has a new whistleblower. I literally started laughing. I could not believe this. And it's at a point where it's becoming like a sketch comedy.
Is the new whistleblower going to be Ed Buck by any chance?
I hope so.
Because that would be interesting.
Where is he, by the way? We need him.
He's in prison.
I know, forever.
Well, it's like those YouTube commercials where you see Biden like stumble, and you're like, you know how many takes it took to get this one shitty recording. Like, I want to see the bad takes because he found it horrendous. Like, he's stumbling on. I'm just thinking, I'm like, really? Like, this is the best take? I hope somebody, like, some WikiLeaks person just releases the bad takes, because I think that would be golden. That would be
golden.
This
How
makes
much
me
money
think
have
that-
they raised? How much money has BLM and Antifa?
God.
What, last week you go to antifa.com and it reroutes you to Joey?
Mm-hmm.
thing
Yeah.
is, they're being taken advantage of. I truly believe there's a lot of young people and people who truly believe that, okay, there is some racist things about America that we could fix. I mean, I've had Freeway Rick Ross on my show in the past, and you guys are familiar with like the crack and cocaine difference. You know, if you got caught with crack in the 80s, it was much more time. You got caught with cocaine, it was much less time. Obviously, that was blatantly racist. I mean, Nixon was on tape saying, you know, he was trying to lock up minorities and whatnot with the war on drugs or whatnot. So, I mean, there are some issues, and the thing is, like, I think these people are being misguided and
Totally.
by politicians, and I think some of them truly believe that, you know, they're motivated by good intentions, but they don't realize that they are being used and they are being, you know, they're just pawns in a political game, and they don't realize it. So I hate to group them all together, because it's not that they're doing harm, because, and the other thing too, like that, why, like, riots and protests have become the same thing. Like, I see a riot and they call it a protest, you know, and it's like, wait, wasn't this like, this looks like a lot like a riot. They're burning shit, they're damaging businesses. If they're not, you know, holding Black Lives Matter signs, then it would be a riot. I mean, nobody would call it a protest, you know. So it's quite obvious that, you know, they're being used. But
they've been given purpose. They think they have a purpose. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Okay. But and also, how much of that anger and the things going that fast to from protests to riots, how much of that was because of the lockdown? I mean, how many people were
exactly
trapped in their house for so long, going fucking crazy?
They banked that.
And then that's all they needed. That's all the motivation they needed to just lose their mind and go and do this. And then in sports, I mean, look, it's ruining sports. It's ruining everything, because a lot of people go to sports to get away from politics, and now you can't even do that. Like, you can't watch sports to unplug from all this crazy reality anymore.
Ricky, they on the Thursday night game in Kansas City, when they did the show of unity where they all linked arms, it was just a chorus of boos from the only 16,000 fans that were allowed in there. And their ratings are down 16% year over year for opening night last season. So people are showing that, like, they're kind of, you know, okay, we can do the protesting thing and have all that stuff, but and even to the extent the athletes, if they individually have some sort of opinion on this, that's fine. But when the leagues mandate when they mandate Black Lives Matter be painted on the courts for the playoffs in the bubble in the NBA,
slogans on the jerseys, I'm like,
and ratings are off a cliff on the NBA. People are not interested in this. Get woke, go broke is going to happen, and maybe not, you know, completely bankrupt these organizations, but they're going to have to answer to their advertisers. Their advertisers are going to want to know why nobody is watching this. And it's very obvious why nobody's watching it, because they've infused politics. The NFL has done this for a long time with the salute to service with the U.S. military. Now, they're paid to do that. They're paid to have, you know, wear the camouflage and do that whole thing. And they're also paid to show the national anthem on television. They used to not do that, but it's contractual now. So there's a big part of this is propaganda and politics being infused into professional sports. And it's a gross combination because, like you said, Ricky, this is one of the things, it's one of the outlets that people want to get away from all this nonsense, to get away from the fact that we're clearly living in some form of a simulation if our two choices for president are Donald Trump and Joe Biden. So people want to watch sports and not have this horse shit crammed down their throat, but that's what they're getting.
This
ratings last night, Sunday night, were down 28%. It just came out like an hour ago, and that was the Cowboys and the Rams. Rams opened a new stadium in LA.
Yep.
Two big teams down 28% since last night. Thursday night, J.J. Watt went on the news the next day on the Texans, said, I didn't understand people booing. The problem with these teams is they haven't had people in the stands to boo them. So they're like, why are you booing? Like baseball, they can kneel and the Marlins could throw one pitch and they can walk off the field. If they had 25,000 people in the stands, they're not going to walk off the field and just go home. And then everybody that paid for a ticket's just going to leave. So they know they can pull this shit while there's no fans. And then then all of a sudden there's 16,000 fans in Kansas City and they boo and they go, what are you booing for? If they had fans in the stands in all these leagues this year, they'd be half full and people would be booing. They just haven't seen that. So it's a good year for them to protest when there's nobody, they don't hear any outside noise, live directed at them, except for the Chief game, which was great. It just shoved it right in their face. They're out there posturing, It's like the WWE, they know what camera to stand in, to mug it. So they're all locking hands. They get booed. Like, you booed us?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was great. It was great to see. And I'm a big sports fan, but
me too.
Next year is when they're really going to feel it if they keep doing this shit. I think people already checked out and aren't even going to come back next year when they do have fans.
Jim, now as a stand-up comedian, we were talking about sports being like a way to unplug from all this madness. Now, it's kind of like a two-sided sword, right? Because like, in a way, all this chaos gives you tons of like material, right? It gives you tons of stuff to write about, but some people might not want to continue hearing about it at a stand-up show. Like, so is that like an internal dilemma that some comedians might have in regards to like, do I talk about it because it is what everybody's talking about and it gives me tons of stuff that I could make fun of because like what we were doing with Joe Biden, I mean, there's endless material? Or do you feel like maybe I shouldn't talk about it because people might want to unplug from it?
I just don't, because I know every other comic, especially in New York City when Trump first got in, and every late night guy and Saturday Night Live, they were all doing the same joke. Trump was almost like a Polish joke. Okay, so what did he do at the end that was a little crazy? So I don't do that because I'm like, all right, I got four guys before me. I'm not now, okay, here's my political material after you just heard four other people. You could hear the audience groan when anyone brings it up. They just tried like, oh, please, we got hit over the head with this shit. Don't bring it up now while we're out at a comedy show. So now they try to disguise the joke. Like they'll go, my grandmother who hates Trump, she always screams when I go over there. So it's coming from the grandmother and not them. So if there's someone that doesn't, likes Trump in the audience or doesn't want to hear politics, well, it's a crazy grandmother saying outlandish stuff. So that's how they try to disguise it. I don't try to divide the audience. I'm not going to fight with them. I just go up there and tell jokes. They don't want to hear from me. They don't need another comedian that doesn't know anything about politics talking about politics. There's enough of them out there. It really is. There's enough of them. So they don't need another guy that barely knows. Comedians know how to write jokes and deal with drunk people late at night. Try to figure it out and navigate as they're on stage which way to go. That's what we're good at, and that's it.
If you watch Bill Maher, it's pretty much the shit on Trump show every week.
Yeah, I used to watch him, and then
he's not a comedian.
Sometimes he calls out the left though, and they go crazy. They get really mad.
He does.
If he even just goes a little to the middle, they go crazy.
But this is the thing that's weird, right? Like Bill Maher, who all he does is shit on Trump. He's also one of the few guys that has been open to the vaccine debate and pushed back against big pharma a few times. The weird thing is that used to be a left thing, right? Like, like you think of hippies, you think of like plant medicines and homeopathic and all this stuff, like, and then all of a sudden it's like I'm anti big pharma, and for some reason everybody standing with me is on the right, like instead of on the left.
Right.
It's so weird.
Yeah, that is one thing that Bill, probably because of his advisors, that he's one of the few that I've heard in the mainstream talk about the immune system and do a good service. But then most of the time it's just, let's crap on Trump and make fun of Orange Man.
Well, he's a very organic diet, I hear. No, just kidding.
Well, he was very sick,
he's very into Hollywood. He's very into that. So, yeah. I mean, he's not a comedian anymore. He hasn't been for 10 years. He's a political commentator.
10 years? He's been 25. Like, he's been doing that since Comedy Central. Man, he was doing that. I think the Clinton campaign was when he launched Politically Incorrect, and Chris Rock was one of his correspondents. I mean, I watched him. I remember it. I watched him growing up for years, and he got pretty untenable after the Obama administration. He really stopped talking about the war in the Middle East, which he was good on. You know, he's pretty good on being anti-war. Every once in a while, like you said, he pisses off the left. But, you know, I loved Religulous. I think he did that around 2010, 2011. I think he's got a lot of talent. He's a smart guy. But again, this partisan notion, you know, Bill Maher is one of the people that put Vice News on television. He was an executive producer when they got that kick in HBO. So, you know, he brags about, you know, his political donations. You know, again, we're just in an odd world where everything's upside down and anybody at this moment can kind of come forward with a piece of truth. And I think the main reason that is because we are in such like a dystopic nightmare. You talked about sports and you talked about people booing. Well, I caught the first football game I'd seen. I'm casual at best. I watch MMA. That's about it. And I heard what I thought was the crowd. And I'm like, wait a minute. Is there a crowd there? Oh, no, they're pumping in the crowd sounds. So the dystopia of the fucking, you know, cutout people wasn't enough. Now we have to let you know that, you know, he caught the football and he charged in. And we, So that also hurts because the normal person, you know, they can't distinguish between fantasy and reality when they've been so used to that being reality for so long. You know, you talked about the booing when they're down there. Well, now, when there's still no crowd and they lock arms or they take a knee, what do you think they're going to pump in? You think they're pumping in booze?
Sick.
No,
It's
they're going
like
to pump in the cheers.
Ultra. Right. I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's like kind of sick. It's like they're gaslighting us to our faces. It's like, you know, they're pumping in cheering and all of this. And it's like they're trying to simulate a normal football game during normal times, but we all know there's no crowd, but yet they're doing it anyway. Why?
It's
The
the
players.
sitcom
So
laugh track.
insulting.
It's a sitcom laugh track. Cheer here.
I hate laugh tracks.
No,
They
I know.
hurt
It's silly.
me.
It sounds silly when they're putting in, you know, the stadium's empty. You see the shot. There's nobody in the stands. And then, you know, all of a sudden there's crowd noise when they score a touchdown.
But this is the new normal, right? That they kept using that term. And one thing that bothered me was the fact that it didn't bother me anymore that there wasn't a crowd. Like I could get into the games and there wasn't a crowd, and I'm like, why isn't this bothering me? I'm giving in to the new normal. Like I don't want to accept this. Like the fact that like I have kids and you know, Jim, you have a young one too. Like you might never be able to bring to a wrestling match or a basketball game or like you're telling me that like what they're going to be adults by the time they can do that. Like what are we waiting for? This is insane. Like why can't? There's people gathering everywhere. There's people gathering at Walmart. There's people gathering, and you're telling me pools can't be open. You're telling me that families who come in together can't sit together at a game. Like this is madness, you know. And that's why it takes somebody like initially it was the German soccer league was the first one that's like, okay, we're going to start playing regardless. They're the first ones that did it, and everybody kind of just waited for the explosion, like what's going to happen. And then they played and nothing happened. Then another league started and nothing happened. Another league started and nothing happened. And now they're still talking about cases like, oh, this person does positive, but nobody's dying, so who gives a shit? And they're talking about, you know, there's a article that came out not too long ago about how these tests are so sensitive that they're finding that the amount of the virus or the strength of the virus that you're testing positive for is so weak and so pointless that who cares if you, it's almost like in MMA, and Jason knows this, like, you know, it was similar issue that John Jones had in regards to like the steroid tests have gotten so good that he could be in a room with somebody, you know, who has steroids and he could test positive for it, you know, and it's meaningless. It's a meaningless test result because it doesn't mean that they're going to die.
They're not a diagnostic tool. Kay Mullis stated that. Why doesn't the story end there? 80% plus are false positives. That means they're negative. And if you amplify it enough, it looks for the genetic code. If you've ever had a coronavirus, there's a whole family, it will come up positive. And this is now the Bible, that they have to stick this PCR, this swab, crossing the blood-brain barrier up into tickle your brain. And what is it really doing when we know that the first tests were contaminated with the coronavirus?
The UK. Yeah, it was the ones going to the UK. And what about the guy who, Ferguson, who provoked this whole lockdown? His numbers ridiculously high. The second they shut down the whole country, he's like, whoa, I didn't know you're going to do that. Hey, I don't think it's going to be as bad as you think. And then they have a lockdown to a country that he caused,
Yes.
Okay? He influenced, and then he gets caught leaving his house during the lockdown
To go see his
meet up with
mistress.
Like, you can't make this shit up. Like,
And he's funded by Gates.
Oh my God.
yeah, I mean, there's
There
like
we go.
there's
Exactly.
story after story and story of the fact that we've been lied to, that things have been overblown, that things have, alternative information has been suppressed. So when I meet somebody who still takes it seriously, I just look at them and I'm just like, where the fuck are you getting your information? Oh, you stop watching the news. It's like that old saying, like if you don't watch the news, you're uninformed. If you watch the news, you're misinformed. And that's exactly what's going on. People are misinformed. People have to turn off. Even my wife. I mean, during the whole lockdown, I was doctors on, researchers, and I'm like onslaughting her with information. And then, like, I go a day or two without talking to her about it, and she's watching the news, and all of a sudden she's like, well, what if it is serious? I'm like, stop watching the fucking news. I'm like, it just takes like 24 hours of you watching this nonsense for you to completely, question everything that you thought you knew, but that's the power of propaganda. That's the power of TV. It's this idea that, like, they're telling you this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. And then you start, and it's the fact that the other tactic that they use, it doesn't matter if they overwhelm you with information, even if there's conflicting information, just because there's so much information. How many people do you know that go, well, I don't know what to fucking believe, so I'm just going to wear a mask anyways? And they won.
Or I'm doing a service to my fellow man.
Right.
It's like I thought, like, pandemic came out, which I worked on in a small way. I'm like, okay, surely now it's over. Okay, now the 6% came out. Surely now it's over. And then I'm talking to my mom, and it's like, Mommy, I've been reporting on this since January. And she's like, Mary, this is not like the flu. It's worse. I'm like, throw your TV away. Right. Just throw it away.
Guess who wasn't falling for the propaganda? All the young kids who didn't give a fuck about the news, who are like, I'm going to hang out with my friends anyways. None of us have school. There's nothing to do. And guess what? I saw them all hanging out in groups. I saw them all. I talked to, cousins and nieces of mine that were younger. They're like, I'm not watching the news. I don't know what's going on. We're just hanging out with my friends. So, like, guess what? They weren't fucking tricked because they weren't watching the news. They get their news from like Twitter or Facebook or whatever, So the people who are watching mainstream media every single day were the ones being tricked into this. But it's the illusion of safety. My gym, everybody wears their mask underneath their chin, and you were all touching the same spray bottle, so you can't avoid. Like, I'm breathing heavy, like I'm picking up dumbbells.
It's over. There is no fucking virus.
Yeah.
Is that Dean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's me. Sorry, I thought I muted my mic.
But in California, gyms are closed. Where are you, Ricky, that your gyms are open?
I'm in Massachusetts.
I'm in New York. They're open, but you have to wear a mask. They take your temperature right in the middle of your forehead when you come in. You have to wash it down. They're handing out gloves. There's no... Yep. It's so ridiculous.
Just such waste of energy. Life is so precious. And look at all this waste of time. I'm telling you, when I go to the airport tomorrow and I re-enter the matrix, because I'm in like the jungle where no one here, we're gathering and people are snitching on us. But the airline said, if you don't follow these measures, you're not going to get on the airplane. 10 hours, I'm going to wear a face diaper.
You can take it off when you eat.
It doesn't make any sense.
It's not acceptable then.
Yeah, and breathe the recycled air that goes through it, the whole thing. None of it makes sense.
It's the no pissing section in the pool. It's you can't pee in this section of the pool, but you can pee in this section of the pool. It's ridiculous. This thing is over.
Smoking section on an airplane. Remember that? When we were kids, they had like the smoking section of the airplane. Like, who thought that was a good idea? Right. So what are we gonna have, the virus section and the non-virus section? I mean, get the fuck out of here with this. This is insanity. Like, stop the simulation. I want to get off. I want this to stop. This is ridiculous. We're pretending we have to wear a mask to walk into a restaurant. And then we sit down at the table and we can take it off. What are we doing? Why are we pretending this is actually working? It's like a collective delusion.
Totally.
And you want to tell the person that you see over there, like, hey, snap out of this.
Yeah.
And it's like they're in a trance. It's crazy.
I like when they make the cities close, the bars close at like 11 o'clock. So I guess it's
10 o'clock in Portland.
11:01 from 11:10.
Virus starts working.
Yeah.
At 10:58, it does not really around, but as soon as 11 o'clock hits, that's when the numbers go way up. All of a sudden, the coronavirus comes out at night after 11.
The beaches close here at 2:30. Oh, Rona started working.
Yeah.
Started a shift.
Now, so we got to
You can
close.
drink cocktails at a restaurant, but you can't drink cocktails at a bar because
on the sidewalk.
coronavirus gives a shit. Apparently, it's
Ricky,
just-
I got to run, man. I got to put my kid to bed. So it was good
Aw.
meeting you guys and talking. I had a good
Bye.
time.
Thanks for jumping in, Jim.
Later.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Future one.